In this video, sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons, we're going to discuss the feasibility, the viability of using 5 infantry marches in the open field. And I don't know if I've landed on the best combo. Assuredly, I would say I have not. And we've got to make a few swaps here because I've got some suggestions, some things that I tested. I wasn't happy with them, and I want to talk about it. Now, why is it that you would consider using 5 infantry? Well, as it turns out, whether or not you have infantry on the open field in Call of Dragons determines whether or not you can push. If you have infantry soaking the damage, trust me, you can push the field. Our enemies have figured this out. BDO has been using this for a very long time, but now people are arguably using more infantry than we are. Or really, we're just up against 2 entire kingdoms, and so they just combined obviously have more infantry than we do, and 1 kingdom worth of players. But you need infantry to push the field. And what if you could run 5? I mean, I want to be an infantry player in this game. The merits, generally, I would say, kind of have not been as good compared to all my other marches. So that's a bit of a rip. Even if I'm just using my best infantry, the kinds of reports I get are not as good as when I use my best marksmen or my best mages. It just is what it is. But what if I can fulfill this role? And what if I can use my infantry like cavalry, but they're tougher and they can frontline a little bit? I tried that. I think I just want to make them all more tanky. Let's start with the combos. We'll go and review the artifacts. We'll review the pets. And there's definitely some changes I would make here if I had certain pets. And I'll talk about what those would be. And I'll show it to you on screen, all right? So the first thing we need to talk about is all the way on the right. And it's actually just Goresh and Skogul. We know that pair is goated. We know they're meant to be together. Put them together. I use the Spirit Bone Torque because that is the artifact that is associated with them, giving counterattack and a taunt. I use the Venom Lizard because it poisons people that attack them. 10 out of 10 can recommend. You could also use a Bruin Bear, and I think a Bruin Bear would be a fine choice if you're going with Goresh and Skogul as a pairing, and that combo is phenomenal. So that piece of the puzzle all the way on the right, I would not change. Some people might say you could split them up and do better. I'm not going to do that, all right? From here, we need to look at the other heroes on the board. And I want to start with a couple heroes that I've been excited to find a place for a while. I wouldn't say that I'm fully satisfied with this yet, but it's right over here. It's the Nika-Thea combo. So why Nika and Thea? Well, a couple things are happening here. One is that Nika does pretty big skill damage, all right? She is going to make it so the target takes 1,500 damage factor, and you can't see it because it's by my head, but their health is reduced by 30% for 3 seconds. Super cool, right? She does have a peacekeeping skill, but in the season that I'm in, you can swap that out for a combat-related skill. All right, so you can get a combat skill. She gives attack and march speed, so not very tanky, and makes you deal more hero skill damage and deal more counterattack, okay? Now, unfortunately, Thea doesn't do hero skill damage, but she is going to make it so your next hero skill damage will do more damage, okay? So you increase your hero skill damage, which ends the next time a rage skill is cast. This actually has a really cool synergy with the skill Total Slaughter. This does 500 physical damage factor, okay? That's kind of crazy. 50% chance to deal damage to the target if they have fewer than 50% of units remaining, and it can be triggered once every 2 seconds. So you'll basically have Thea's skill activate. She'll shield her march and a nearby march, which is pretty legit. But then from there, she increases that skill damage dealt by 15%, which works with this, I believe, till you use this active skill. All right, kind of a cool synergy. She also, of course, is going to give you attack, take less hero skill damage in the field. She gives you defense, which you very much need for your infantry. And as you're doing all this shielding, you're going to be making it so that you get more attack. Pretty cool. Now, I have the Fang of Ashari on here. And the reason I've got Fang on here is because I want this march to be way more tanky. I really want this march to be way more tanky. Unfortunately, okay, the Visage of the Sanctus isn't going to work because we're using infantry, not flying units. So even though this is your Thea artifact, that ain't it. Fang of Ashari ends up being the one, I think. You reduce the damage you take. I haven't actually 6-starred this yet, but I would if I were getting more serious about fighting with this thing. And This is going to drop a damage field on the ground, which is pretty nice. All right, deal damage to a bunch of enemies that are in that location. So the pet I have on here is a sand lizard. And the reason I have a sand lizard on here is I wanted this march to live a little longer, and I wanted to have at least one sand lizard in the ball healing the group. Okay, now this sand lizard is a starting point. It was actually intended for marksman. I would do other things to build this sand lizard for the infantry combo. I really did intend to use this for marksman, but then I just wanted to see, and I ran around a little bit. I was like, I mean, you know, obviously the pet's not helping as much as it could, but basically healing your nearby marches is amazing in this configuration because all the infantry will likely be stacked on top of each other, and the radius of the heal is extremely small, but infantry all stacked on each other, this adds up. I mean, this ends up becoming a meaningful amount of healing. If you want to see what a good healing sand lizard looks like for perspective, I can show you the one that I actually use, and it's this one right over here. I have no clue why it's on my Hosk right now. I'm going to have to figure that one out. Normally, I'll run that out. Why? Dude, what in the world is this doing over here? Whatever, my presets are correct. And when they run out, this is what I'm using. It's basically a fat heal, all right? And I fire that heal off more frequently, and I've increased the heal strength very dramatically. That is probably topic for a separate video about heal strength. I would not copy this build moving forward with Divine Blessing or Tranquility, but you kind of get the idea. This is built for marksman, though, all right? Anyways, I think that having a sand lizard in the ball, pretty legit. Maybe even multiple, quite frankly. All depends on how many sand lizards you have tolerance for. Now, this brings us to the next march in the combo, and that is Meline, and I've paired with Bakar. And the thing I like about Bakar is that when you get low, whenever you're getting hit, you have a chance to apply a bleed onto the enemy. 50% chance to inflict bleed on the target when counterattacking. And bleed deals damage every second for 3 seconds. That's crazy. So presumably you have a lot of things hitting you because they're infantry, they're in the front. And as that happens and you're getting low, you start making all those things bleed, man. It is just nuts. The rest of his kit is fine. I mean, you increase your damage dealt, which is nice. You get attack and defense. When you get hit with normal attacks, you can inflict gloom, which is pretty cool. And in the season I'm in, you can replace his garrison skill with a relevant skill. Meline, you're of course familiar with, giving you shields, making it so you have more legion capacity and damage dealt. You get health and counterattack. You also make it so that you have a shield, and when that shield breaks, you do damage, and also you reduce the damage you take. Yeah, here's the tank, here's the DPS, and I also use the dragon scale armor for pretty obvious reasons. This gives you a shield and reduce the range damage you take, but also there's great synergy with the Frost Bear. The Frost Bear plus Meline plus the armor, it's just a very great combination. All right, I've built this Frost Bear okay, but the main reason I'm investing in it now and haven't really invested in it as much is because normally I just run Skogul over and over. I'm garrisoning a bastion, and I have been for days. So, like, I'm using this march more and more, and often I'm running 2 infantry. Now, when I run only 2 infantry in the field, it's Skogul and Meline Garwood. But, like, we're talking about 5 infantry combos, right? So let's go to the next combo, and that is going to be Garwood with a... Dude, everyone's going to be hyped to hear that I'm using Indus, but Indus is, I think, appropriate here. So let's talk about why it is that Garwood and Indus make sense, and also why this artifact didn't work out for me, okay? And this pet is not what I would use. Oh my gosh. There are changes needed, and I just didn't have the thing set up. We'll talk about that. But Garwood is obviously doing fat heals, okay? These fat heals keep you alive. And he's also increasing your heal strength and your damage dealt, okay? All of that is really cool. But the thing that really tops it over with Indus is that she also is going to heal. But she only heals things near where she is targeting. So people are like, why aren't you using an Indus? She's healing. And unless I'm misunderstanding, because it's been a long time since I've really looked at this, you heal near where she's targeting. And if you target away from all your range marches and don't have any close marches, you're healing nothing. So when you have all 5 of your marches stacked on top of each other, not only are you, I think, going to heal them, but you also increase the damage taken of the target and 2 nearby targets. She's also got this skill, 20% hit points, maximum legion capacity. I mean, it's all kind of nice. But when we talk about the artifact and pet combo you use here, we got to make changes, man. The artifact the developers released very recently that's designed, I think, for Garwood is this right here, the Deathless Vines. I wasn't expecting this to show up when it did, and I didn't go for it, but it inflicts a mobilize effect on 3 legions, okay? And I believe that can go higher. I'm not looking at the max version of this, okay? And in addition, you grant shelter to up to 2 nearby friendly legions, including your own, for 10 seconds, okay? So you will mobilize these legions, they can't move, and you give yourself defense. Dude, this would be perfect on Garwood. And the reason it's perfect on Garwood is that when a legion receives healing via a hero skill, artifact skill cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds for every 600 points of healing. And I believe these numbers can improve. This triggers once every 6 seconds, but Garwood heals. So like he reduces the cooldown and you're just cranking the immobilizes. That seems awesome, man. So yeah, Deathless Vines, that's the pick. Slam dunk. But, you know, who has that yet? Well, nobody. What could you do instead? Well, a Greymar's Warhammer will do. How about fat stuns? That immobilizes them. Big damage. Heck yeah, man. Greymar's. I wish I had a Greymar's. Well, I have it, but, you know, like had it. Like Max Scale had it, you know, but I don't. And it is what it is. And I'm saving for the next infantry artifact whenever that shows up, assuming we get an infantry artifact in the new season with new heroes that are infantry? Question mark? I don't know. Maybe it was the Deathless Vines, and it could be that they released this early for some reason. Couldn't tell you why. And that we will get new infantry and that they are doing a lot of healing. Could be. It could be. We know that Chisgule also does healing. One of her skills, right? 4th skill. But whatever. Deathless Vines is good. As we talked about, Greymar's Warhammer will be super legit. And there's a couple other artifact options that end up like, they're just sort of flexible. You can put them where you think you need them. But one of them is the Springs of Silence. It gives you attack instead of defense, which I really don't like. But it does AoE damage. And I like that. The other artifact you could, of course, use is over here. The Dragon Tamer effect from Dragon Rift. Big damage to a single target and grants you key. Okay? These are free-to-play obtainable artifacts. You could use them. And of course, there are, a couple other ones you could consider if you are using Blink to teleport behind enemy lines. But you could use the Wolfwoman of Healer. You could also use the Storm Arrows. Neither of those is like ideal for infantry. Obviously, they have cav stats, but if you want a member of this squad to be blinking, yes, this is an option for where you could put that. I don't love it on the Indus per se, right? You'd probably rather have that somewhere else. But when we come to the pets, I think the thing you want is a Stripe Bear. I happen to have this very good Stripe Bear. But Stripe Bear is going to make it so you get a hit point effect every time you're doing a heal, which is very good. I think Stripe Bear will be the play. You could also do a Venom Lizard, okay? But I think the Stripe Bear seems to have been very clearly designed for Garwood. I would love nothing more than the new hero that shows up to actually just pop off with a Stripe Bear. If the new combo pops off with Stripe Bear, I'm all for it. The only thing I'm not in support of, though, is that healing is just generally terrible in a garrison. So, like, if we get new infantry and it's a garrison hero, I will be disappointed if the garrison hero is all about healing. That would not be cool. Because, you could put a hero that heals in the garrison, or you could just fill the garrison with more troops, which is the same as healing. It's just different ways of getting more troops. One of them is an active skill, and one of them is just reinforcing. So, like, yeah. Anyways, that's the combo number 3. Technically number 4, because Goresh Skogul was number 1. Which brings us to our final combo. And there's a couple heroes I would say you can use that I haven't mentioned. Okay, we'll get there. But the combo is a Hosk with Eliana. Be like, wait, what? Hosk with Eliana? So Hosk is going to buff yourself. Keen, Vigor, Rampage, attack, hit points, and damage dealt. Okay, he's going to make it so that you get 25% more defense. You want to be more tanky. And you're going to get more troops, which is always a W for infantry. He's going to increase your crit rate and counterattack rate, also Ws. Now, in addition, we pair with Eliana, who shields, which I think qualifies as a buff, which has synergy with the Awakening of Hosk, I believe. And over here, when you cast rage skills, you gain shelter, which has synergy once again with this furious charge effect. Gaining buffs is going to make it so that you increase your crit rate for normals and counters, right? She also is going to heal to keep you a little bit more healthy, but I'm not going to pretend that it's enough. And then she also takes 30% less normal attack damage. So when you're getting focused, she makes you way more tanky. Again, I would prefer a more defensive artifact, but we already talked about, I think, every single artifact I would really have considered. I don't really, at this point, look at the epics for viable options. In the end game, I would say that that's probably not it. There's some cute utility that you could probably find here, but I think you are better off if you're running 5 inf on the field at a time with a lot of these legendary options, if you can get your hands on them. All right. Now, as far as pet goes, I think a sand lizard would be a pretty good play. It looks like this is why the sand lizard is on my Hosk, actually. So I put my better, I do have 2 lizards in this ball. The better lizard is on the Hosk. There it is. There it is. And like some of these skills are kind of suboptimal, but whatever. Like I said, this is actually designed for Magrat. So there are a couple heroes you can use that I did not. What are they? Well, one hero you could use is actually Canara. And Canara is very surprising with her kit. Her active skill inflicts a debuff, Feeble. It decreases the damage dealt by 15% and does 1400 damage factor. Second skill, when you're in the field, 20% more normal damage and take 10% less hero skill damage. Seems good. Okay, fourth skill, when you're hit with a normal, 20% chance to gain repost and inflict slow. So you do more counterattack damage and you slow your enemies. Like, yeah. And she inflicts defense break. Yeah. Use Canara. Actually, unironically, might just be better to swap out Eliana and use Canara. Right? And, you know, there's like several places you can put her over here, maybe, but seems pretty decent. The other hero that I may have mentioned in yesterday's video would be a great consideration would be Urog. And Urog is going to do some cool stuff. He does area of effect damage, okay? He makes it so you take less damage, deal more damage. He'll make it so that you bypass hit points, increase your rage. You want to put him with someone super tanky if you're going to do this, but you could do it, and I think that would actually be pretty legit. Okay, I actually think that would be pretty legit. Even your cavalry are like real contenders. I would just say you'd probably want a more tanky cavalry rather than like Ferondil, who's very punchy. I'd say, like, for example, Theodore would be kind of nuts. So you have another way to bruise here. A little duplicative with Nika, okay? But giving your cavalry stats isn't going to help. This is a garrison one. I guess because he's got cav stats and a garrison thing. That's actually kind of suboptimal. Darn. Theodore, I see why I wasn't using you before and why I won't be using you moving forward. You'd have the same problem with a hero like Sindrian, because he's got a rally skill and a marksman skill. See, that's the problem. Magrat has like a rally skill, or I guess a garrison skill, and also a marksman skill. I suppose you could get a look at Zeta, right? Actually, Zeta, unironically, let's see here. You're increasing your normal attack damage. Seems good. Increase your march speed. Seems good. When you get max stacks, you deal more damage and receive more healing. Healing's not going to do anything. She's got a marksman skill that you'd have to replace. And when you deal normal damage, you have a chance to gain normal attack focus, increasing your crit rate. I mean, it's possible. Okay, it is possible. Bakshi would not be a good choice because he's got a peacekeeping skill. I mean, and a cav skill. Yeah, probably that's not it. But Emrys is a good choice. That's the final one I wanted to talk about. That's right, Emrys. So Emrys does a lot of cool stuff. Okay, 1500 damage factor. Okay, that's not cool. It's actually very vanilla. But then from there, rage when you enter battle seems good. From there, you'd have to replace this cav skill, but the fourth skill makes it so that you deal more damage and Also, deal more damage to surrounded targets, which you're going to be surrounding stuff because you're bringing 5 marches. So, like, actually, Emrys could be kind of cool, especially, once again, in this format where you can swap out a skill. So, where am I at with the all-infantry ball? I would say, based on my experience, unless you are the overdog, chances are your infantry are going to get really beat up. And if they're getting really beat up, your trades are not going to be great. But if what you wanted to do was find a creative way to soak more damage and contribute to the team when they're low on infantry, you could try this out. Okay, 5x infantry could work. And I have seen it, and it's not amazing, but it is fine. And if there's lots of other infantry on the field, you will have enough overwhelming just presence of inf that you won't get focused out, and you can do some cool stuff. Now, I did mention I had the Springbird Feather here at one point, and it gives March speed and hit points, but you just don't need the Feather, man. The Feather, speed is not where it's at. Speed is not going to be the difference maker, I found. Would it be cool if it was? Yes. But is it? No. Not in my experience. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. All in all, kind of hyped about running more infantry. And next season, obviously, if they drop new infantry, then I can't wait to definitely drop the epic heroes out of this lineup and swap in some legendaries and find a new creative way to run this. Like, for example, maybe I use Urog, and I talked about that in my spinning event for him. I spun the wheel. It was good. Card will be right over here. Go check it out. I am hopeful I'll find a way to use him with infantry at some point. I feel like I probably will find it, but you know, he's a little bit punchy, and I feel like infantry you want to be tanky.